When it comes to spiritual awakening, especially for the chosen ones, it's almost impossible to fully describe in words what it means. Spiritual experiences are, by their very nature, non-logical, and cannot be confined by the limitations of language. Much of what happens when you awaken spiritually cannot be seen or described precisely. It can only be felt, lived fully, witnessed, and experienced. So what does having a spiritual awakening mean for a chosen one? Some describe an awakening as the moment when you open your heart to God and allow a new level of light to enter. You begin to see and experience a deeper understanding of what life really is. For the chosen ones, this means recognizing their divine purpose and feeling an intense connection with divine energy. It's a transformation that illuminates your soul and reveals the truth of your path and mission. Others would describe spiritual awakening as the moment when you disconnect from your personal narratives, overcome conditioning and limiting beliefs, allowing yourself to directly experience the answer to the question, "Who am I?" Regardless of the words used, spiritual awakening is a moment of transcendence that, when conscious, can expand and impact all areas of your life. For the chosen ones, spiritual awakening transforms the way you navigate the world, bringing a sense of inner peace and tranquility that guides your actions and reactions. Before awakening, life can seem like a series of coincidences or events over which you try to exert control. It seems that the good things happen because of you, and the bad things happen to you. But when you awaken, you begin to understand and feel the natural flow of life. This new presence allows you to relax and recognize that you are always in tune with the divine energy of the universe. Coincidences are no longer random, and your intuition becomes stronger. Although it's a unique experience for everyone, a spiritual awakening can happen in a moment. It's when you're ready and willing to detach from the ego, from that small, fearful, and confused self, and recognize your true essence. These moments of awakening are powerful and transformative. The shift in understanding can last just a moment, a few hours, or days. For many, stabilizing this transcendence requires learning to live in this state of heightened awareness. There are a number of tools that can help spiritual evolution. It doesn't take effort, work, or intensive practice. Spiritual awakening is accessible to anyone who is ready to let go of false beliefs, whether this is a process of years or a moment of impact. To stabilize this transcendence, it is necessary to repeatedly return to presence, silence the mind, and tune into the heart. Spiritual awakening is a magnificent experience, but it can feel like a roller coaster, oscillating between states of depression, exaltation, and stability. To shed light on this process, here are some phases through which most of the chosen evolve on their path of spiritual awakening. Spiritual awakening takes place in phases, each of which is an essential step towards finding your true self. Of course, your spiritual journey may not follow exactly the same stages mentioned here. Each person's path is unique, so accept with gratitude the phase you are in. Every advance you make is crucial to your personal growth. Let's get straight to the point. For many, spiritual awakening begins with chaos, often called a wake-up call. Suddenly, life imposes unexpected events, shaking the foundation of your existence. Many recognize that chaos signals the beginning of their spiritual journey. This turmoil can manifest as a significant change in a relationship, a serious accident, a challenging illness, or any event that destabilizes your life. These moments can feel as if the universe is giving you a strong jolt, taking the ground out from under your feet and leaving you vulnerable and exposed. You begin to question yourself deeply, realizing that life is more complex and less stable than you imagined. At this stage, you thought you were in control, but you realized that you never really had control. The old ways of thinking and living begin to show their limitations. Things that once seemed essential, status, possessions, superficial achievements, begin to lose their value. This phase often brings intense emotional turmoil, making you feel lost, confused, or deeply disturbed. You begin to question yourself frequently, gaining a new understanding that life is much more complex and impermanent than you imagined. As you face chaos and a wake-up call, you begin to realize the fragility of your old certainties. These disruptive events act as a wake-up call, forcing you to question the meaning and direction of your life. The feeling of helplessness can be overwhelming, but it also serves as a catalyst for deep internal reflection. At this stage, it's common to feel a mixture of intense emotions, from sadness and frustration to fear and anxiety. Your routine is shaken, and what once seemed stable now seems uncertain. However, this instability is necessary to dismantle the illusions about control that you thought you had. This is the time when you begin to unravel the layers of your true essence, questioning the purpose of your existence and what really matters. The wake-up call phase can seem lonely, as you can often feel that no one around you understands what you're going through. It is a period of great vulnerability, where you are exposed to new truths about yourself and life. However, this vulnerability is crucial, as it opens up space for genuine growth and the discovery of a new way of being. You begin to realize that the answers lie not outside of you, but within. Chaos serves as a harsh but essential teacher, guiding you to look inwards and find a new foundation, no longer based on illusions, but on a deeper and truer understanding of yourself. This initial awakening is only the beginning of a greater journey, where every step you take leads to a deeper understanding and more significant spiritual growth. The wake-up call is often illustrated by concrete events and biblical stories that show how moments of chaos and crisis can lead to a profound spiritual awakening. In the Bible, the story of Job is a clear example of how chaos can initiate a spiritual awakening. Job was a righteous and prosperous man, but in a single day, he lost his children, his wealth, and his health. This complete collapse of his comfortable life was a wake-up call that led him to question God's justice and the nature of his faith. Despite his pain and suffering, Job ended up experiencing a deeper understanding of God and himself, recognizing the greatness and mystery of the Creator. Another example is the Apostle Paul, who before his spiritual awakening was known as Saul of Tarsus, a persecutor of Christians. On the road to Damascus, he was blinded by a bright light and heard the voice of Jesus asking, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?" This chaotic and unexpected event was a wake-up call that transformed Saul into Paul, one of the most fervent defenders of Christianity. His experience of blindness and subsequent healing symbolized the opening of spiritual eyes and a radical change of life. Moses also had his wake-up call when he saw the burning bush in the desert. He was living a quiet life as a shepherd when he was called by God to lead the people of Israel out of Egypt. This unexpected and powerful encounter marked the beginning of his spiritual journey, completely changing the course of his life. Peter, one of Jesus' disciples, faced his wake-up call after the crucifixion. He denied Jesus 3 times, as Jesus had foretold, and was deeply remorseful and ashamed. After the resurrection, Jesus appeared to Peter and restored him, asking him 3 times, "Peter, do you love me?" John 21:15-17. This moment of reconciliation and reaffirmation of his love for Jesus marked a turning point in Peter's life, transforming him into a courageous leader of the early church. These biblical examples show that the wake-up call often involves moments of great challenge and crisis. These events shake the foundations of people's lives, forcing them to reevaluate their beliefs and seek a deeper understanding of themselves and God. By embracing these experiences, they are able to embark on a journey of spiritual growth and personal transformation. The time has come for a people to awaken and answer God's call. Your next stage may be the dark night of the soul. During this period, you may feel what I call emptiness. This emptiness is not an absence, but a transitional space between the old and the new self. It's natural to feel lost or directionless during this phase. This period can bring a deep spiritual crisis, characterized by a loss of meaning, uncertainty, hopelessness, and doubts about your place in the universe. It's not just a bad day or a difficult phase, but an intense emotional and spiritual transformation, almost as if your old self is being torn apart. However, remember that this is also a phase of realignment. The story of David is a good example of a dark night of the soul. After being anointed as the future king of Israel, David went through a long period of persecution by Saul. During this time, he hid in caves and deserts, feeling helpless and betrayed. In many of the Psalms, David expresses his anguish and doubt, asking God why he has abandoned him. However, this phase of suffering helped David to develop a deeper faith and greater dependence on God, preparing him to be a just and compassionate leader. The prophet Elijah also went through a dark night of the soul. After confronting the prophets of Baal and witnessing a great miracle, Elijah fled into the desert in fear of Jezebel. He became so desperate that he asked to die, saying, "It is enough, O Lord. Take my life now, for I am no better than my fathers." However, during this time of despair, God sent an angel to care for him and later spoke to him in a soft whisper, renewing his strength and purpose. The story of Job is another clear example of a dark night of the soul. Job was a righteous man, but he lost everything: his children, his wealth, and his health. Feeling completely abandoned, he questioned God's justice and his own existence. However, through this experience of pain and suffering, Job developed a deeper understanding of God's nature and a more resilient faith. Even Jesus went through his dark night of the soul in the Garden of Gethsemane. On the eve of his crucifixion, he felt deeply anguished and asked God, if it were possible, to remove that cup of suffering from him. However, he ended his prayer with a total surrender to God's will, saying, "Not as I will, but as you will." This moment of intense agony and surrender prepared Jesus for the supreme sacrifice that was to follow. During this time of emptiness, your soul is integrating all the lessons you have learned and preparing you to emerge as a new person. You may feel drawn to deep reflections, writing in journals, or doing simple activities such as walking in nature, absorbing its healing energy. This is a period of self-care, a time to allow these changes to take root. In the void, you can also discover hidden talents, gifts and passions that were hidden under your old ego and life circumstances. You begin to hear the call of your heart more clearly. Following this call can light up your path in a unique way, revealing a potential that you may not have known existed within you. When you are ready, your soul will know that you have rested enough and will begin to emerge from the void with renewed strength. Your beliefs, mindset, and even your physical reality can be transformed. If you are going through a dark period or entering a difficult phase, remember that you are not alone. The road may seem endless, and you may feel like speeding up the end, but have faith in the process. Don't rush through these stages. Each one contains its own lessons, and each lesson is crucial for the next level of your spiritual growth. Your soul is wise and knows exactly what you can face and what lessons you need to learn. The dark night of the soul plays a vital role on your spiritual path. It's a time to confront your deepest concerns, doubts, and fears. This confrontation allows you to grow and transform. Facing these obstacles head-on helps you free yourself from false beliefs that have kept you stuck, giving you a clearer vision of who you really are. On the other hand, some people experience what can be described as the exploration or the awakening full of grace. Unlike the chaotic and painful road, this type of awakening occurs without specific tragedy or suffering. It is a beautiful and natural realization that comes unexpectedly. The awakening full of grace, or the awakening of exploration, suggests a broader change in the collective human consciousness. More and more people are experiencing these gentle awakenings, indicating that transformation doesn't always have to be the result of pain. This uplifting trend is encouraging, as it shows that spiritual enlightenment can arise naturally and peacefully. A classic example of an awakening full of grace is that of Siddhartha Gautama, who became Buddha. Siddhartha was a prince who lived a life of luxury and comfort. However, when he left his palace, he encountered human suffering in the form of old age, illness, and death. These experiences awakened in him a deep desire to understand the true nature of life. He left his life of comfort and began a spiritual journey that culminated in his enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, where he reached a state of peace and understanding without experiencing direct personal tragedy. Another example is Saint Francis of Assisi, who experienced a spiritual awakening while living a comfortable life. The son of a wealthy merchant, he abandoned his wealth and status after a series of spiritual visions. Francis went on to live a life of simplicity and service to the poor, finding deep peace and purpose in his new existence. Regardless of how your awakening begins, whether through chaos or grace, one thing remains constant. You begin to ask deep, existential questions. What is my true purpose? And why am I here? These questions challenge you to look beyond material success, social status, and external validations to find true fulfillment and inner peace. They become the compass that guides your journey. As you search for answers, you begin to research and study spiritual texts, practices, and teachings. You can start meditating, practicing yoga, or getting involved in other spiritual practices. This stage is about learning and getting to know more about spiritual cultivation. It's a time of curiosity and openness, where you explore different paths and philosophies to find what resonates with you. The next stage of your awakening is the stage of bliss or integration. Think of it as the magical time of day for your soul, when everything shines with a golden, radiant light. At this stage, you feel not only extraordinarily alive, but also deeply connected to the universe, awakening a new enthusiasm for life. Some people, however, experience a sudden or blessed awakening. At this stage, your surroundings transform into a vibrant and colorful fantasy scene. The trees seem to whisper secrets, the birds sing melodies that touch your soul, and the flowers bloom as if they were made just for you. You feel extremely happy, thrilled, and radiant, experiencing a host of positive feelings that may have been hidden for a long time. It's like finding a treasure trove of pure emotions, each one more exciting than the last. Why is this stage so incredibly joyful? Because your heart is awakening. Many people experience a true heart connection for the first time. As your heart awakens, it overflows with empathy, connection, and pure love. At this point, you begin to feel an invisible power guiding your journey. Significant coincidences often happen. You think of someone and they call you, or you find exactly what you need at just the right moment. Your intuition also becomes sharper during this stage. With your heart more attuned than ever, you begin to make choices and take actions that resonate with your soul's true purpose. A biblical example of this stage is the transfiguration of Jesus. In a moment of pure divine connection, Jesus is transfigured before his disciples, his face shining like the sun and his clothes becoming white as light. This event symbolizes a deep connection with the divine and a state of spiritual bliss. Another example is Paul's experience on the road to Damascus. After his conversion, Paul felt deeply connected to God, full of enthusiasm and renewed purpose for his mission. His life was transformed, and he experienced a series of significant coincidences and divine guidance. A concrete example in modern times is that of Eckhart Tolle, who describes in his book, The Power of Now, how he experienced a sudden spiritual awakening. At a time of deep depression, he had an experience of enlightenment that completely transformed his life, leading him to feel a profound peace and connection with the universe. Another remarkable aspect of this stage is the discovery of spiritual gifts you never knew you possessed. You may discover a talent for deeply understanding people or an ability to heal with energy. These gifts can feel like superpowers that increase your sense of purpose and strengthen your bond with others. You may want to hold on to this stage because it feels like an endless honeymoon with your soul. The happiness and euphoria are so overwhelming that you may think you've reached the final stop on your spiritual path. But like any honeymoon, this stage comes to an end. Some people, however, experience what we might call a sudden or grace-filled awakening. In this phase, the world around them turns into a bright and colorful wonderland. Many people mistake this euphoria for a permanent state, thinking that they have crossed the finish line. In reality, it's just a beautiful chapter in a much bigger, ongoing journey. As you progress through this stage, savor the joy and connection you experience. Allow yourself to absorb the warmth and light of your awakened heart, knowing that each phase of your journey brings its own unique lessons and gifts. The stage of happiness is a time to celebrate your progress and recognize the incredible potential within you. Embrace it fully, but remember that it is only one part of your ongoing evolution. A biblical example of this stage is Enoch's experience. The Bible mentions that Enoch walked with God and was seen no more because God had taken him. Enoch lived a life so in tune with the divine that he was taken directly into God's presence, symbolizing a state of communion and spiritual bliss. Another example is Daniel's experience in the lion's den. Despite being in a situation of extreme danger, Daniel felt God's presence and protection and emerged unscathed. This event demonstrated a deep spiritual connection and trust in God, resulting in an experience of peace and bliss. A concrete example in modern times is the experience of Anita Moorjani, who describes in her book, Dying to be Me, how she had a near-death experience during an advanced stage of cancer. During this experience, she felt enveloped in unconditional love and deep peace, which led to a complete recovery and a new outlook on life. Her story is a powerful example of a grace-filled spiritual awakening that completely transformed her existence. You faced it all and reached a place I like to call grounding or enlightenment. Imagine it as finally feeling firm ground beneath your feet after being swept away by the storms of inner turbulence. This stage of your spiritual journey is less like a chaotic roller coaster and more like a serene ride through picturesque hills. The road may still be bumpy at times, but you now have a firm grip on the steering wheel, your intuition and trusty wheels, your newfound wisdom. Grounding represents a period of stabilization. The intense emotional and spiritual upheavals have subsided, leaving you on a peaceful shore. You are no longer in survival mode. Instead, you are beginning to build something meaningful with the materials your soul has offered. You have changed. Your perspectives have evolved. You've felt the lows of sadness and the highs of faith, the chill of being alone, and the glow of togetherness. These moments didn't just pass. They became part of you, shaping a stronger and more beautiful version of yourself. At this stage, your relationships begin to change. You resonate at a different frequency now, and not everyone from your past will match this new vibration. This is perfectly normal. You're not abandoning them. You're moving on, and those meant to be in your life will naturally align with you. This is also when your true purpose becomes clearer. You've let go of social expectations, family pressures, and outdated dreams that no longer serve you. You are free to see what really matters to you. It's as if the universe has cleared the fog, revealing the path you must follow. This period may be quieter, but don't mistake it for inactivity. It's like the deep stillness beneath the rough ocean. At first glance, your life may seem unchanged, but deep down in your core, everything has changed. A biblical example of this stage is the life of Joseph, son of Jacob. Joseph went through enormous hardships, including being sold into slavery by his own brothers and being unjustly imprisoned in Egypt. However, after years of turmoil, he became second in command in Egypt, stabilizing not only his life, but also saving many lives during a great famine. He found his purpose and did significant work, showing the power of grounding after turmoil. Another example is Nehemiah, who returned to Jerusalem to rebuild the city walls after the Babylonian exile. Nehemiah faced opposition and challenges, but with faith and determination, he stabilized the city and restored security and order to his people. His rebuilding work symbolizes grounding and the creation of something meaningful after times of difficulty. A concrete example in modern times is Malala Yousafzai, who, after surviving a Taliban attack for defending girls' education, went on to fight for educational rights around the world. Her journey of recovery and activism is an example of how someone can find stability and purpose after facing great adversity. She used her experiences to build something meaningful, positively impacting the lives of many people. Having endured challenging times, you now appreciate the blessings in a deeper way. Every little thing feels like a precious gift from the universe, nurturing the new you. As a chosen one, you have graduated through each phase of your spiritual awakening, emerging stronger and wiser. Congratulations on getting this far. However, remember that this journey is neither linear nor universal. Each person's path is unique, and yours continues to unfold, offering new lessons and opportunities at every step. Keep walking with courage and curiosity, knowing that spiritual evolution is an ongoing process. What you have achieved so far is only the beginning of an even deeper and more rewarding spiritual adventure. As a chosen one, your mission is to bring the light and wisdom you have acquired to help uplift humanity. May your journey always be blessed and guided by the hand of God. So, my friends, although spiritual awakening is difficult to describe, the chosen ones tend to recognize when it is happening. Do you feel like you're going through a spiritual awakening? If so, you probably are. It can be preceded by a dark night of the soul or happen suddenly. But one thing is certain. When you are awakening spiritually, you feel it. You feel a little different, and you may not be sure whether to move forward or backward. Know that you are not strange, and you are not alone. You are exactly where you need to be. As you continue to access the inner light and wisdom you have always possessed, now learning to tune into them, life will begin to seem even more magical. Spiritual awakening is not an easy path, but it is full of blessings, magic, and opportunities to live with more love, joy, and satisfaction than ever before. For the chosen ones, spiritual awakening is about aligning with the knowledge of your higher purpose and bringing yourself into alignment with it, here and now. But, of course, this happens one step at a time. Be kind to yourself, honor where you are, and stay positive about where you're headed. When in doubt, stay silent, calm your mind, open your heart, and connect with your angels. They will help you access the brilliant light and wisdom you carry within. Be filled with the knowledge that everything is happening as it should.